Well, Nigeria's National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC, has released an amended version of the 6th edition of its broadcast code that could put the local investments of pay TV and video-on-demand platforms at risk. The new code, which requires that all online broadcasters are registered with the Commission, will prevent pay TV and streaming platforms from making content exclusive and compel them to sub-license content at prices it will regulate. The broadcast code was released following recommendations of the Committee on the Reform of the NBC and the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari. Meanwhile, the Independent Broadcasters Association of Nigeria, or IBAN, has asked the National Broadcasting Commission to suspend the implementation of the amended 6th Broadcasting Code. And here to speak on the implication and more is the chairman of the Copyright Society of Nigeria, Chief Tony Okoroji. Good morning to you, Tony. Thank you very much for joining us. If we were to get right into the nitty-gritty of this, can you give us a bit more insight into this new broadcasting code, what it means, how it's different from the previous version, and again, what that means for broadcast in the future?
Good morning. I would like to say that in principle, I share the objectives of the amendment to the broadcast code. I believe that the objectives would refer to Nigerians participating more in the development of content and the dissemination of content, and so that our creative industries would get bigger and be involved in a lot more slice of the cake. What some of us might not agree with, right, is the formulation of the code itself. I do not think that they went as far as they can go in trying to bring together the different elements, the different interest groups that can make the code a whole lot better, so that its implementation will be such that everybody will be happy. What I suspect is going to happen is that there will be a whole lot of litigations. The question is whether the people who made the code did not overreach, whether they did not go beyond their powers, whether they did not start making laws which are laws that ought to be made by the National Assembly, whether they were not acting ultra-virus, like the lawyers would say. So I am concerned that they've got into things that ought to be dealt with by private contracts, and then are insisting that the NBC has the right, take, for instance, the issue of exclusivity.
Yeah, very ton issue.
Very, very, very important. I am on Arise News today because I like the station. Arise News has peculiar programs that I enjoyed watching. They're exclusive to Arise News, and Arise News goes out of its way to make those programs. To insist that Arise News must share its programs with someone else goes against the whole soul of
Who didn't know how the program was created, how the program was formed, the amount of money that was spent, and all that.
Yes.
So some critics and players said this amended code is punishment, actually,
yes,
for the local content and technology service delivery, that they should instead seek to incentivize. What's your sense?
Telling somebody who has created a program which really is a property, intellectual property recognized by our constitution, that you must share it with someone else who was not there and who didn't make the investments you made. What you do at the end of the day is punish people who are creating great content. And what will happen ultimately is that you are going to deny investments in content creation in Nigeria. So rather than achieve your objective, in fact, you are creating disincentive to the achievement of those objectives. And I think that there is a need for rethink of the entire process. Again, I understand what the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture is trying to do. We have discussed some of these issues.
Yeah. I
support my friend who is acting DG of the NBC, Professor
Idachaba. Now that you have brought Idachaba in, the NBC acting DG, maybe I should take you up on that. He has acknowledged the concerns raised by industry players like you, Tony, and therefore the board and the management will look at them. That is what it's saying. This should assuage the players, yes?
No. I mean, that should be good. I have seen the intro to the Sixth Amendment, and it talks about a meeting held in Lagos in March of 2020. Everybody will know that in March of 2020, the coronavirus problem has already started. That was when this meeting was held. A lot of the stakeholders were not consulted. I can say that I represent thousands of people who are in the content industry in Nigeria. We were never consulted. We were shocked when we saw the amendment. I know that IBAN, has problems with the amendment. I was speaking to a very serious person in the advertising industry, Lulu Akinwumi, who used to be chairman of APCON, and he's aghast at the contents of the code. So we need to be careful. I think we need to revisit it, and nobody should see it that it's victory for anybody and defeat for anyone. We just want to make it better so that Nigeria...
Let there be consultations.
Absolutely. Let's do all the consultations and make it a whole lot better. In my area, for instance, in the music industry, there are certain aspects of the code that say that if you want to license music and you don't know who to license it to, you go to the Nigerian Copyright Commission and whatever they say is final. And I'm like, in a democracy?
But Tony, one wonders really why, in the first instance, you've touched on it, why the NBC drawing up this code, why they did not think that there should be consultations with stakeholders, to bring in their input. They say two heads are better than one.
Sorry, I have a little problem with my earpiece. While it's being fixed, I would... you will say, why was there no consultation with stakeholders?
I'm wondering,
I cannot, frankly, answer that, because I know that the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture is somebody who is so bent on consulting as widely as possible. Why this didn't happen in this case, I am not sure. But there is also something that I need to mention here, and I think it's beginning to bother me about how Nigerians react to a number of issues. I know that there are a lot of people who are so crazy about what you might call the exclusive rights of DSTV or multi-choice
pay TV platforms
to some sports programs like the Premiership in the UK, and who would like to grab that right. And I said, look, we have so many broadcast stations in Nigeria. If they think that the Premiership is a strong content, let them get together, pay for it, and get it. To the best of my knowledge, Multi-Choice Nigeria is a Nigerian company. It's a Nigerian company. It might have started elsewhere in the world. Deumi Ogunsoya, who is chairman, is a Nigerian. John Ube, who is the CEO, is a Nigerian. The company employs thousands of Nigerians.
All right, Tony, I'm going to keep you on post there. We're going to get back so many more issues to discuss, the question of MCSN with you, and then maybe more of this code. Hang in there, we'll be back. Well, we're still discussing with the Chairman, Copyright Society of Nigeria, Chief Tony Okoroji. Tony, glad to know that you're still there. Let's shift to some of the issues. If we have time, we'll probably come back to this code matter. Well, some are advocating an entertainment, talking about code still, really, entertainment sector code of corporate governance, because according to this set of people, the sole thumb, in the entertainment space is lack of structure, especially in the music industry.
The structures are not perfect, and we should continue to work to build more perfect structures in Nigeria. I don't agree completely with the people who say there is no structure. I've had many times people say, look, we don't even have a database of Nigerian music and musicians and all that. And I say to the people, they have not come to Koson House in Ikeja. Some people call it the magnificent Koson House, where we have a whole department, that had some of the best software in the world, and we have incredible database. Yes, I'm for unity of the industry. I've always been moved for the unity of the industry, because I believe that together we stand and divided we fall. I was for the unity of the industry when I was president of PMAN, and we built an organization that was appreciated across the country. I'm for the unity of the industry as chairman of Copyright Society of Nigeria, Koson, because the more we come together and deal with our issues, the better we are. Unfortunately, there are people who prefer divisions because they think that they can maybe get whatever they want if the industry is divided. I like to call on them to please eschew that. Let's come together, work together, and bake a much bigger cake that everybody can share in, and it will be good for our country and for our children.
Who are those people that you think are benefiting or preferring to continue to operate in a space where there's so much division? Who are you talking about?
No, there is so much hunger in the country. There is so much hunger in the land. I mean, let's not play around that. And the people who do very well, or they think they'll do very well if there is instability in the system. And they try to create that kind of instability and bring divide and rule tactics. And I've experienced this quite a bit. And in the social media era, people who go to the social media and heap all kinds of things on everybody with absolutely no evidence. I have had to go to court so many times to defend my name.
Now you have brought up that issue, Tony. Let me tackle you on that immediately.
You are welcome.
Apparently, you don't want to call names, but I will call names.
So go ahead.
Last week, we had Arise had Mayo Ayelara, the CEO, Musical Copyright Society of Nigeria, MCSN, who you have had a running battle with in the courts. According to him, your organization shouldn't be existing in the first place. Listen, Tony, because the court says Koson is not a corporate entity. You are illegally approved. You shouldn't have been there in the first place. So you're not even there.
I don't want to join issues with Mayo Ayelara. Mayo has been a chief executive officer of an organization called MCSN since 1984. That is 36 years now, 36 years, in which I don't see what they have done for the music industry. Mayo is not a musician, he's not a label owner, he's not anybody I think has invested anything in music industry. These are people who want to eat from the music industry.
But then the courts have spoken, Tony.
No, not court has said that Koson is not a corporate organization. Yes, there was a ruling in the courts about the name Koson, not the organization Koson, the name, and we've appealed that. It's in the Court of Appeal.
Oh,
yes, and the organization that will say whether you're a corporate entity or not in Nigeria is the Corporate Affairs Commission, not Mayo Ilaro. And the Corporate Affairs Commission has not deleted COSON as a corporate entity in Nigeria. I want to repeat that. The name COSON continues to be solid, continues to fly.
Because I was really wondering whether it should be here on TV with Arise if you're not a corporate entity.
You know, if you want to find out whether COSON is a corporate entity, go to the CAC in Abuja. That's where to find out. And I know that the CAC...
Well, I must say that I like the way you're handling it. You're very, you know, very... I don't know the word to use now.
No, light-hearted, definitely.
You know, yeah, very cool about it. And I'm wondering, maybe because you have an appeal in the court and you're thinking that...
No. I have absolutely no doubt that we are on good grounds, fantastic grounds. I don't have any issues about that. But I want to deal with the important issues and not all these issues about quarreling and squabbling and pointing at each other. It's what you do for the people you represent.
Accounts.
Yes. COSON has thousands of members across Nigeria who support the organization. Just recently, everybody's been on lockdown. And the artists across Nigeria are looking for help. Incredible help because...
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
let me come in there before my colleague comes in.
Yes.
Your organization which... okay, let me remove this. Because if I say this, you might not like it. Please. So let me remove that aspect of my question. All right. Your organization recently on Facebook announced a 50 million palliative to members, you know, to cushion the effect of COVID-19. Each member, according to what I read, gets 11,000. There will be a balance. From my calculations, I did some little maths.
Yeah.
You know, there will be a balance of about 500,000.
Yes.
So the question is, what happens to the balance? Have you distributed these funds? Did all the members guesses? And what do you, make of the attack by MCSN on this issue?
No. First of all, you know, let me say that during the lockdown has affected the musicians of Nigeria in a very traumatic way. There are no event centers happening. If you go to a place like Edo State, for instance, a lot of the musicians used to live on what you call obito. There are no obituaries, no burials, no big burials, no weddings, no birthday parties, no ceremonies, no nightclubs. So people are hard up. And people spoke, you know, musicians in Nigeria, and no one came to their aid. But COSON came to the aid of musicians across Nigeria. You spoke about the 50 million we first distributed. There was another 22.5 million immediately after that COSON distributed, put together about 70-point-something million. Yes, you know, I do mathematics too. I had an A in maths.
Really? That's interesting.
Yes. So you go to the maths and you say you are distributing money to 4,500 members across every state in Nigeria. Of course, you are using the banks. The banks there are bank charges involved. There are taxes involved in all that distribution. That's why you have the little money above it. It's not money that I have stolen or anybody has stolen.
The 500,000, yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering where that went to.
You know, it's, you know, but when we said we're going to distribute this money, Maya Ilaro and his MCSN said no. You know, we shouldn't distribute the money to musicians who are hungry. Their own money should not be distributed to them. I didn't understand the good sense in that. And that's why I'm saying that if we all work together for the good of all, we can bake a cake which everybody can eat from, instead of all this tiny squabbling that really doesn't add anything to anybody. Let me tell you that when we did that distribution, because I supervised it personally, my cell phone nearly crashed because I was getting prayers and calls from musicians across every nook and cranny of Nigeria. And it was a great thing for me to be involved in taking away the pains, because there were musicians who couldn't buy a recharge card. There are those who couldn't buy ordinary Panadol when they had headache because they didn't have any money whatsoever. You know, the money might not mean so much to somebody who is comfortable, but it meant quite a lot to a lot of the poor musicians across Nigeria who got the support of Kuson at a time that they badly needed it.
Well, that's great. I wanted to stay on that topic because, you know, we started talking to you about the 50 million naira. You went on to say that there was actually 22.5 million naira in addition to that, making 72.5 million naira handed out to musicians across all 36 states of our country. I wanted to ask, were there any types of difficulties in distributing that money? There were reports that some of Kuson's accounts had been frozen. How were you able to facilitate that process with these types of difficulties going on in your ranks?
No, thank you very much for reminding me that when you have focused leadership, and the leadership is about dealing with the problems of the people you lead, you find ways. You know, ordinarily, Kuson would have said, no, this is not just the time to do that. We had to cancel several projects we were supposed to be doing because truly, you know, our money into banks, you know, have been frozen. And they were frozen, you know, because people didn't want us to succeed. Kuson is a great example of a Nigerian institution that has done well, that is well run. And you need to go to Kuson House in Ikeja to see.
Well, someone will say you're blowing your own trumpet.
Yes, you know, if your trumpet is good, please blow it. you need to go there. I invite any of you to go to Kuson House in Ikeja and see a blue chip organization being run in the Nigerian entertainment industry. You know, yes, we were in court trying to get our accounts unfrozen so that we can distribute more money to musicians across Nigeria and elsewhere. You know, but even with that problem, we're able to do what we did because our focus is helping musicians and helping the industry grow. And when we are talking about the code, I said I'm worried that each time in Nigeria we do something that is good, we try to pull them down ourselves. We find people pulling them down, you know. Aliko Dangote is doing great things across the continent of Africa. I see Dangote companies, you know, appearing everywhere on the continent. I don't want a Dangote company in Tanzania pulled down, or a Dangote company in Zambia or in South Africa or wherever pulled down. We need to rethink about the way.
Tony, a good paradigm, I must say. You're saying just you can tweak it, you must not break it down. Do I have a minute or two to ask him one more question?
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I can't. 30 seconds is not. It's not about you, Tony. It's about my director. He's saying I can't go ahead. I mean, I was actually going to ask you about the fact that is there no way really you won't be able to have the time? But I was thinking, is there no way that you, MCSN, all the parties can come together? I look forward to settle these differences.
I look forward to that.
You know, because you disagree to agree, not disagree to disagree.
I agree with you completely, and I've enjoyed myself on Arise. And let me say that you guys do good.
Thank you so much.
I'm proud of what you do. You do good.
Thank you so much. All right, just keep up the good work. We hope you guys settle.
All right.
You know. Thank you so much. All right, we've been discussing.
All right, well, that was Tony Okoroji. It is time now for us to take...